So the Snow White marketing campaign has officially started by the Walt Disney Company, and there's been a lot of things revealed by those out there like Rachel Zegler, Bob Iger, the Disney CEO, writer Greta Gerwig, director Mark Webb. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with the production of this film, for one thing, and then there's another thing when it comes to the promotion of this film, which is already a disaster in the making. We know that Rachel Zegler talked about a lot of things when it comes down to Snow White 2025, attacking the critics, the general public, even some of the Disney fans out there that are rejecting this movie outright. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. So, we know one thing about Snow White 2025 is that this movie in particular is going to be 100% driven by Disney's ideology, by their agenda, their message, if you will, that was initially promised by Bob Iger, that was going to be all about quieting down the noise, that really was never about that. That was nothing more than a way to promise something to the shareholders, to really string them along into the following year. Now, focusing on Rachel Zegler, and I've talked about this many times, she is a menace when it comes to the promotion of a movie like this. We all remember the PR disaster that she created back in 2022 with the whole weird situation, but this is where things begin to pick up even further, and it's not looking good at all for the character of Snow White herself, but also for Rachel Zegler's overall energy and how she's actually putting a lot of this on Disney fans, critics, the general public that has an issue with this film, and more. Let's get into this, shall we? Now that the Walt Disney Company is going through a number of issues with all of their divisions due to both Bob Iger's cost containment plan and their deliberate agenda, which has devalued nearly every brand under Disney, one monumental development going on right now involves more to do with Zegler and the rising drama with Snow White 25. Now, Zegler went on to deliver the following, attacking the critics and defending the film in the wake of the boycott. With this Snow White, we wanted to do something differently that I think many of the loud and toxic opinionated people out there are going to have a problem with, but we really wanted to provide Snow White with a new origin story and how this story will be all about empowerment for women. With this one, we really wanted to add a layer where Snow White got her name after surviving a monstrous blizzard, and her parents gave her the name Snow White based on all of that. We have seen a rising number of those out there that have an issue with something like that, and I think that just comes from an extremely negative, selfish place, where those types need to keep their opinions to themselves. There is too much misogyny and sexism in this world, and this will be somewhat addressed in this Snow White film, so that we can properly raise awareness for that. But I hate when people label a film like this as holding some level of an ideology, or what many call an agenda, and there is nothing of the sort in here that portrays that. It's just flat out ridiculous. First, look, I think it was the best choice for Snow White. I think it was the only right choice, and how I was the right choice to fully actually get myself involved in this role, since I knew this character so much growing up. There is nothing wrong with changing source material and altering a character's backstory and why they are called what they are. Everything is just blown out of proportion. This film heavily promotes a layer of empowerment and how women can lead and remain strong in this world. Of course, you are going to have cases of sexism and the like coming from those out there serving as critics against this film, but that's to be expected. Nobody has a clue about the rules who can bend in that you can bend in a story, and especially in an origin story about Snow White. I did have some artistic and creative differences about the film. Now guys, let me just say one thing about this before I move on. Now, Rachel Zegler goes on to talk about how this is going to address some levels of sexism and misogyny. Now, I'm not quite sure how they're going to do that, but we already know that this movie, in and of itself, is going to be a complete disaster. We talked about all the reshoots, we talked about all the revisions, the re-edits of the movie, even some rewrites that were done at last minute. This movie has flip-flopped like no tomorrow. I mean, this is going to be the 4th round of reshoots coming up in December. I don't know if you guys have been following on that front, but there will be more reshoots looming for December of this year, and that could or could not lead to a delay from March of next year until June or July. We'll have to wait and see how extensive those reshoots are really going to be, and whether or not it's going to take a lot of time to do them. Now, we already know that Zegler is blaming the critics. She's blaming those out there, kind of implementing sexism and misogyny into their critical takes. Makes no sense to me at all. I think that what they are focusing on, and myself included, are the fact that Disney is focusing on an ideology over proper entertainment and proper character development. I mean, that's what it's always been about in recent years. By Bob Iger, by Disney, and even under Bob Chapek's leadership, it was that bad as well. So we already know that this is going out of control. Rachel Zegler, her marketing campaign for Snow White is not looking good. For starters, at the very end of 2024, technically, if you're looking at it from a movie marketing campaign standpoint, the last remaining months of this year are crucial to really getting this movie out there and to really promote the film. Now, on top of this, she goes on to conclude, and I really do believe that this movie is going to raise awareness for all the terrible things in this world, like sexism and misogyny. It's going to be a must-watch film for those that will learn about a new Snow White. And again, that's not to believe this is any sort of a message to divide people. This is just a fun story to tell about a Disney princess. A princess who can be the most powerful woman in her own story. And I saw myself in that role, because I see myself as powerful and brave, especially to take on this role and see my life in this movie in so many ways. So here we go again. I mean, Zegler seemingly wanted this role because she saw herself in this role. I mean, that's what it really kind of boils down to. That's what it's translating to as far as I see things, as far as I'm concerned. But one thing I do want to bring up about this film is that we know that director Mark Webb had some creative issues with Rachel Zegler, and she talked about her having some creative and artistic differences. I think that's exactly what she's alluding to without really saying it, because we talked about all this behind the scenes drama between Mark Webb and Rachel Zegler, and how Mark found her to be very difficult to work with after choosing her. I mean, that was his fault to begin with. He's the one that wanted her on board. But at the same exact time, look, we know that there's a lot of drama going on between Rachel and Gal based on their real-world beliefs, their real-world issues, and their view of the world, and we already know what that's all about. But there's more to it than just that. They have a lot of, business-related issues, especially based on how they wanted to work together in the marketing campaign. That began to fall apart, and how the Disney executives are trying to piece that together piece by piece, and to really keep that all intact. It's going to be a very hard and difficult task. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about this, because this could very well be potentially the worst performing Disney live-action remake in history. Alright, we have to really realize that this is going to be a game changer, and not in a positive way. Alright, in a very negative way for the Walt Disney Company in 2025. It's not going to be a good start for them if this really flip-flops, or flops I should say, that bad at the box office. But overall, I mean, I would like to hear what you all have to say about that below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.